Good morning, it's December 19th. This is To My Liberal Friends. Sometimes you have to look into the future and try to predict what might happen if certain events were to occur. And I'm willing to do that a little bit today and make a prediction that should scare every American citizen. It would be a move so brazen and so full of giving power to one party that should not be allowed to happen. So let's assume that in 2028, the Democrats take a clean sweep and control the House, the Senate, and the White House. If that would occur, they would immediately take steps to ensure that they're able to pass every and all progressive bills they can imagine and make sure that they stay in power. The first step would be to eliminate Rule 22 in the Senate. Now, they tried to do this in this Congress, but fortunately, Senators Manchin and Sinema would not agree to this power grab, and so they failed. When Republicans took control of the Senate in the last elections, the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, the Democrat from New York, took to the Senate floor and pleaded with Republicans not to do to the Democrats what they were trying to do to Republicans. He was speaking directly to Rule 22, the filibuster rule, because as a minority party, they fully intended to use this rule to try and resist Republican legislation. And I want to say right up front, I support the rule, and I support their effort to use the rule. It was designed to stop a majority party from running roughshod over the minority. It was designed to force both parties to negotiate on major legislative efforts and hopefully come up with a bipartisan solution. The second power move would be for the Congress to increase the size of the Supreme Court. I think everyone knows that liberals in this country are not happy with the decisions of the court and repeatedly have suggested that Democrats try to pack the court if they had the votes to accomplish this goal. Well, the court size has not been changed since 1869 when Congress set the size at 9. The court size remaining at 9 has played a key part in allowing the court to maintain the public's support and its independence. When President Franklin Roosevelt tried to expand the court in 1937, he failed because the public viewed this as his attempt as an attack on a sacrosanct institution. There's a long institutional and democratic tradition of 9 justices, which has allowed our highest court to remain isolated from the political fray. Alexander Hamilton famously defended an independent judiciary insulated from politics in Federalist Paper No. 78, where he argued liberty would be extinguished if judicial power were co-opted by the executive or legislative branches. Hamilton's fear may come reality as Democrats may push for more justices when they regain power, especially if President Trump gets to appoint any new justices. These are the 2 major power moves the Democrats have already indicated they would consider if they regain the power to enact changes. But there are solutions available to Republicans to try and prevent this from occurring in the future. One way would be to propose a constitutional amendment under Article 5 that would make the rule permanent in the Senate. I say this because the founding fathers of our nation set up a government to have a series of checks and balances. The House of Representatives was to be the House of the people, and things can pass in the House with a simple majority. But the Senate was to be the more deliberative body. Senators were there to represent states and not people. Originally, under Article 1, Section 3, Clauses 1 and 2, each state legislature elected its state senators for a 6-year term. Each state, regardless of size, is entitled to 2 senators as part of the Connecticut Compromise between small and large states. One of the factors we forget is that when state legislators appointed their senators, their length of service was between 5 and 12 years. We did not have career politicians running for re-election over and over. Now, getting a constitutional amendment on such a thing would be almost impossible. What the Republicans should do is offer a rule change in the Senate to make Rule 22 permanent, one that cannot be undone in the future without at least 66 votes. This would call the Democrats' bluff. If they voted against such a proposed rule, it would show the world they were only asking Republicans to not abolish the rule when it served Democrats' purposes, but when it was in their favor, they would once again try. Every Democrat who opposed such a rule change would know it would be used against them in the next election. On the size of the court, offering a constitutional amendment might be plausible. It would limit the court to 9 justices. Once again, it would be a difficult vote for Democrats and one that they would have a hard time walking back 4 years later. Assuming it got the necessary votes in the Senate and House, I believe it would get the approval needed by the states. This would put an end to this political posturing of packing the court just because you don't like some of the decisions. If one side had the votes to increase the number of justices on the court, then the other side would simply add more once they regained the power. In the end, it would have totally politicized the court and made it more like a legislative body than a court of law. Absent a constitutional amendment, the Republicans, now that they have the majority, should once again force the issue by offering legislation to increase the court by 3 justices. With Trump as president, Democrats would all vote against it, and then Republicans should kill the bill and let Democrats know they're on record as opposing any move to pack the court. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on TikTok, move over to YouTube because TikTok may disappear.